Hi, Courtney.
I'm gonna answer your email.
Good. I know her son, and I have her email, and I talked to her on the phone, but I just can't remember what her name is. That's why I said that email. So it was like, I didn't want to write an email and be like, hey. Yeah.
If you can't, will you just actually coordinate your email, because I will reach out to her and ask her who's the
Okay. See, I didn't realize that they had like
Yeah, well.
Sarah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you. Staff ready?
Yes, Mayor.
You guys good? Karen's good? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Independence City Council meeting. It's Tuesday, September 12th, 2023 at 6:30 in the evening, and fall is here. Like the records show that Councilor Job is joining us electronically from somewhere, and welcome. And Councilor Schwartzler is not with us tonight. She's excused. Other councilors are here. Council members, you have the minutes of the August 22nd meeting in front of you, and do they meet with your approval?
I move to approve the minutes as received.
Second. I have a motion second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We're going to go to visitor and public comment. Now, this is for general items. I know that some people want to speak about the system development fees, and you'll get an opportunity when we do that at a separate time. So I got the papers, and so we'll get that when it comes around. So I didn't want you to think I was ignoring you. In front of you, council members, there's a proclamation from me for Attendance Awareness Month. One of the efforts that's being made nationally, people coming back from COVID, there's a lot of kids that aren't necessarily remembering, or families that are not necessarily encouraging students to go to school. So that we've been asked, and I have agreed along with the other local governments, to issue a proclamation, and we're going to be working with the school district to do some public relations kinds of things to help remind people the importance of going to school, because if you're not in class, you can't learn, which means you can't move forward. So I just wanted that to be in front of you and for your awareness. Other things that I would like to just keep you up to speed on: had the opportunity recently to tour the new Polk County Resource Center over at the S-Curves. Got a chance to go through that with Brent DeMoe and friends, along with the folks over in Monmouth, and met with Dr. Helm, who is the new pediatrician that will be coming here. They hope to be here at the beginning of the next year. And so met with him and some of his staff, and they're very excited to be coming to our community. Had a meeting with Paul Evans where we talked about lots of things, including the importance of infrastructure. Had the opportunity to speak at the Heritage Museum opening of the Ella Curran Food Bank display. It was a wonderful activity. There were some 80 people that attended. It's a nice display. It's a nice message. It was wonderful to be part of that. Had the opportunity to attend the Central School District staff kickoff, and there's a lot of energy as all this, the teachers and staff came back. When I first walked into the room, however, I go, oh, where are all the teachers? Students are here. I think that shows that I'm getting older. And but there's a lot of positive energy there, and they were very happy that so many we electeds came. Council of Governments, we had an executive committee meeting over in Grand Ronde talking about legislative meetings and what might be coming up in the short session. Recently gave a tour to some business folks that are interested in our community. They got a long enough tour, they qualified for their Independence pin. And for those that don't know, if you do if you have to sit through a 1 hour driving tour of Independence, you qualify for a pin. Had the pleasure, and this was really nice, to be involved with the dedication of a couple of benches along our waterfront and down by the sports fields that Patrick and Marianne Fugman were generous to provide the funding to put that in. And what was doubly nice about that is that we have some folks, and I think it's 18 to 24 that are through CSC, and they're learning concrete, how to do and install and do what you need to do to be a concrete person, and they're under supervision. And so this was their first practice area, and worked out well. And also Independence Public Works were involved. So it was a wonderful event. It's a wonderful addition. It's just really wonderful to be wonderful again, to work with folks who care so much about the community. Recently, well, last week, the City of Independence and the City of Monmouth were recognized by SEDCOR, the Strategic Economic Development Corporation for this region. We were recognized for cooperation, collaboration, and collegiality is what I call it, for working together so well. And it was a pleasure to be able to accept that award on behalf of our community. And it was doubly nice because Kate Schwartzler, who is a member of this council, is also the elected chair by primarily a business group as the chair of SEDCOR. So that was wonderful. And a reminder that coming up on next Tuesday at 6 o'clock, Senator Patterson is hosting a town hall in downtown Independence. So that's what's going on my front. City Manager West, I think it's to you.
Thank you, Mayor.
So it'll be a short city manager report because a lot of what we do, most of what we do is already in our newsletter. So just a couple of new things. We're really excited. We received a DLCD grant for our housing production strategy. Now you recall we did our housing needs analysis and there were a lot of questions about, well, what's next? What's next? That's what's next. So Fred is now on 5 different projects. Great. Not overworking him at all, but we're really excited because that is the next step. And I know that you were all looking forward to that next step. And then finally, I want to add my thanks to Mayor Kuntz and Mayor McArdle. You know, I've worked with Marion County, I worked with the City of Salem, I worked with Willamina, and those 2 mayors work together beautifully. They do that because the communities are so closely tied. And it's really nice to see. You don't always see it, and we're blessed to have them as our mayors. So my own personal thanks, Mayor, for all the hard work that you do collaborating with Mayor Kuntz. Although she's fabulous, maybe she's doing the hard work collaborating with you. And I assume, Council President Morton, you will talk about Hoppin Heritage?
I will do that, yes.
Then I will leave that to you, and I'll step down.
Okay, thank you. And time for Courtney Williams on the Independence Days After Action. Good evening, welcome to City Council.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I just wanted to give a brief overview on how Independence Days went this past July. Overall, it was another successful year. We have a really great team of community volunteers and city staff that work well together to put on this large-scale event. And it's always nice to have a hardworking, cohesive team when you're putting on an event that large. For some of the things that went really well this year, the most talked about is probably the wonderful fireworks show. It was the biggest one that we've ever put on. And so it only makes sense that it was, everyone say, the best so far that they've seen. So both those fireworks show turned out really great. We heard a lot of positive feedback about the community talent show. That's been something that we've been growing over the last couple of years as well. And then, of course, the lineup of live entertainment is always a really big hit. We had some really great performers this year. So that one, so the live entertainment was definitely a huge hit with the community. In terms of safety and security, our police officers and security contractors did a really good job of keeping the community safe. We didn't have any major issues throughout the event, which is always a blessing when you have so many people in the park. We also had some really amazing community groups that stepped up and helped out the event this year. So I kind of just want to give them a shout out. Make sure I don't forget anyone. We have Central High School Cheer, who took advantage of one of the fundraising opportunities we had to manage the garbage and recycling throughout the 3 days of the event. I mean, they were even there like the day before and the day after. So they kept the park super clean throughout the whole event. We had Woo Cross Country that worked really closely with our finance staff to manage all of the wristband booths, which is a really big, stressful job, especially when you have like lines a block long. So they did a really great job with that. We had YMCA help. They had staff not only create all the kid programming for the kid zone, but then also had staffing there all of the days of the event to put it together. And then CERT was immensely helpful as well. Not only do they roam with security and help with kind of non-emergency issues, but then they're also up at the gate to kind of keep order and organization, especially once we get closer to the fireworks time and it's hectic up there. So it's nice to have extra bodies. So more saying this because we have our core team of people that organize the event, but then it really is more like takes like hundreds of people to actually put it all together and pull it off as we get to the week of the event. So thank you to those groups. We also had some challenges this year, just some awkward days of the week. The event was on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then we were also kind of battling 100-degree weather. So both of those kind of unavoidable, but still kind of created a challenge. And then we also had our fencing company cancel our contract just a few days prior to the event. And so that was a really big snafu that we had to figure out, and that kind of created a whole domino effect of issues that affected the downtown businesses as well, because we had to change the layout since we didn't have as much fencing. So a few things that the commission is looking to fix next year is definitely, number one, finding a more reliable fencing company, since that's a big part of the event, and tweaking that event layout and perimeter to make sure that we are creating the best flow possible for the event. And then obviously making sure that any changes that we do make are communicated well, or better, I should say, with the downtown business owners. And then another big thing that we're working on for this year is looking for a different draw besides the inflatables down in the park. We're looking at possibly bringing back a carnival if we find a company. We're in talks with a few different amusement parks company that do rentals to see if we can find a good company that fits well with our event. So stay tuned. Good things on the horizon. In terms of number of people who attended, we had about 35,000 people in the park this year, which was just slightly over what we had last year. Most of the people are locals from the Polk County area and the Mid-Willamette Valley area, but we saw that there was about 10% of attendees that came from further than 50 miles from places like Portland, Eugene, Northern California, Southern Washington, and even Arizona. So it draws people for sure. As for the finances, the commission hit our target of staying under budget, and we were able to break about even, which is always nice. And we've been trying to find ways to offset costs by bringing in more and bigger event sponsors and more vendors, since those are the two other main ways that the event makes money besides the entrance fee. And this was also the first year that we started, or I should say the commission started selling special event merchandise, which went really well too. So that will be another income. And then currently the commission is on a break and we'll be back planning the next edition after the new year. And so if you know of anyone that's interested in participating or volunteering for the commission, feel free to give them my information. We'll be starting our monthly meetings back up in January. And then the last thing I was just going to share was just unless of course any of you have questions, is just the dates for next year's event are July 3rd through the 5th.
Great.
I do have questions.
Yes.
So you're blaming the fencing fiasco on the fencing company? Wasn't that your choice to move the fencing on the 4th instead of, and then it was fine on the 3rd?
I don't understand the question.
You changed the fencing location down C Street and shut off the roads. And that's what affected local businesses.
Counselor Roden, hit your button.
There you go.
So it was your decision to change the fencing from the 3rd, on the 3rd to and the 4th. And it made it almost sound like it was the fencing company's lack of fencing that caused that fiasco. I mean, businesses were severely impacted by the change of fencing location between the 3rd and the 4th. And that's something that really should never happen ever again.
The hometown night, we do a specific fencing that's a little bit less intense because we have to keep the roads clear for the parade, and there's a lot of other logistical reasons that we don't have to have so much fencing, whereas the 4th of July, I mean, the attendance in general changes from 10,000 to 20,000. So we have to kind of create bigger barriers and push that barrier out further, if that makes sense. So the fencing has actually always been the layout that we've done this year. On the 4th, it's always been closed. We've always closed Main Street.
But you've never charged people to get in.
I mean, I will say for the last 2 years that I've been chair, we have charged people to get in.
I mean,
That was
I just
fancy.
think that was a big mistake. And the other thing is can we look beyond the Rotary Club to do the parade?
I don't know. It is the Rotary Club's parade.
That's only because they apply for it, correct? Because this year, the parade was very political, full of business ads. People didn't feel it gave a hometown spirit. And we left out the Central School District, state champion cheerleaders and wrestling. They weren't even invited to participate in the parade. I think maybe the Rotary Club has lost sight of what the parade is for.
We have also some requests for the Rotary, so I think that that's probably a bigger discussion. The Independence Commission just promotes the parade, but it's actually not a part of the commission. So we don't have, I should say the commission doesn't have say over the actual parade itself.
I think you're mistaken. That's incorrect, right? Because
So-
the Rotary has to apply for the parade because Paralyzed Veterans of America tried to apply for the parade 2 years ago, and the Rotary Club applied for it on July 5th or 6th, and you guys had already approved it, so Paralyzed Veterans of America could not do it.
Well, I don't think Independence.
So this sounds like a discussion that
Yeah.
should probably happen in the commission meeting and offline.
I've
So-
been asking this for months, and nobody would get back to me on why we hurt downtown businesses by closing off the sections without communicating to them and making people have to pay $5 to go get ice cream or to get into these businesses. So
We
I have been
definitely
asking them,
had quite a few conversations on the day of when the event happened, and we had big discussions about that in our after action as well. So flow of communication will be much better this next year. We've talked with the businesses individually to figure out which ones want to be inside the event, which ones want to be outside. There is a bit of an issue when it gets to that point too, where you have some businesses wanting to be in the event and some that are adamant about staying out of it when it doesn't always work for everyone to get what they want.
So it would be fair to say that the commission has heard, and they're working on smoothing this because,
It is a priority for
It
next
is-
year.
there you go. So it is a priority for the future. Yes, Counselor Morton.
Courtney, do you invite council members to be on the Independence Days Commission?
Well, I believe Counselor Job is our counselor, but yes, anyone.
But
can
it's
be-
open to anyone who
Okay.
wants to come?
Yes.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
public meetings.
Yeah.
Anybody can come.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, just one quick, if I may. Courtney, I started with the city just before the 4th of July last year. And it's a huge event, and I saw the work that you and the commission did, and it was extraordinary. And I want to thank you for that. Having all of those people come in can't make everybody happy, but you made most people happy. So thank you for your work.
Okay,
Just
Counselor
one quick
Court.
one. I thought last year, not this past one, but last year, that the inflatables was a real big hit. Did that just kind of nosedive this year? Wasn't
It
as popular?
is It's more of an issue with the cost that it takes to power the inflatables because the city provides that. And for us, we're not receiving enough commissions to offset the cost of that to make it worth it. And we've also been hearing feedback that the older crowd, the teenagers and older, kind of want to see rides back in. So we may try to do a mix. The mechanical bull we had this year was a big hit, and the rock wall will be back. But yes, we're, constantly trying new things out to see what the community
So
thinks.
it's
and get
logistics too,
feedback.
that's an
Yes.
issue. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Courtney. I thought it was awesome this year.
Thank you, Courtney, appreciate that.
Yes.
Okay, moving forward. Mr. Evander, I think you have a building mural request.
That's right. So, boy, about a year ago when Mr. Greenwood came in with the first mural, I said, boy, we've never really done this before, but it says that it's a council decision to decide on murals, and now we've had several of them, right, back to back. And so here's another mural request. It is from, I don't know if it's Felipe Moore or Philippe Moore at Damn Good Bread, which is at the old City Hall, 240 Monmouth Street. This would face the Second Street side of the building. What they're proposing to do is the depiction of the mural is in your packet. It's going to be an outdoor rated plywood that they're going to affix to the wall. As you'll note, I included the historic description of the building. That wall is basically blank right now, so it would add something to the wall. As we've done with previous murals, the code simply says, you folks approve of murals, or you folks make a decision on murals. My assumption is that you folks, there's no criteria by which to approve those. So it makes sense to me that so long as it doesn't violate a code provision, that you would approve the mural. This would not paint any brick or anything like that. It also has removed the DGB that was originally on the bottom right-hand side. They showed a depiction of what they were wanting to do, and I told them, you're gonna need to count the DGB as part of your sign total, and they just have said they're gonna remove that. So based on that, it seems approvable to me.
Questions
any
for questions for Mr. Evander?
I have questions.
Yeah.
Question?
I thought council asked for guidance in the future on these murals, that you were supposed to come back with us with more guidance, so that we wouldn't just, like, right now we can say nothing to this, we just have to approve it because you put it before us. But now we're gonna have this, anybody can come to downtown Historic Independence and put up signage, and we asked for guidance and we haven't gotten any guidance on what we can judge these standards by.
Okay, we will work with the planning commission on preparing guidance for murals.
And I think, I know that you guys have been swamped.
Yeah,
And-
it's true, and I do think that,
So it's not forgotten, it just hasn't got there yet.
right, and I do think, yeah.
And as I understand it, this is a freestanding piece of outdoor plywood on which the mural will be painted.
It's not freestanding, it's going to be affixed to the wall, but you will be able to remove the mural
Okay,
in the future if another occupant went in or another owner owned the building.
and just for clarification, this would replace or be in lieu of what they currently have on their door?
No, this is completely separate because it does not address the business at all. It's it says some words, but it's not a sign. It doesn't say
And-
damn good bread with the,
Right, and everything faces onto Second Street.
right, exactly.
Okay.
There's some questions?
Yeah.
Please.
I don't recall asking for additional guidance, Fred, but I remember saying a while back that maybe we need a body to look at these things and spend some time, I don't know, comparing, contrasting, more so than what we can do. I know Monmouth has an arts commission. I know we don't want to add any more commissions, boards, and committees. We have too many. We have a small staff. But maybe we can get a subcommittee to a commission or something. And, I mean, it's an artistic thing, really, and I'm not qualified to judge artistry. I'm anxious for the place to open, so if this will get them to open, I'm willing to vote yes. But I mean, I think if we're gonna, I think the path we're going down is we want art downtown, and if we want art downtown, then we probably need a body of people to approve it. And maybe that could be a museum board function, to look at art downtown or something. I don't know. Maybe there's some already existing organization or group, but we don't have to add the city staff hours to do. But I mean, it looks fine to me. I mean, it's cute and fun and funky and spread.
And the colors are bright and vibrant and
Yeah, I mean,
complement the hue of the building as well.
And Natasha did all the stuff on the side of the museum for the same purpose, to add some color to the street and some interest and generate, some folks walking by and paying attention to it. So I think from that perspective, yeah, every business downtown needs more advertising. If that'll pick people's interest, then yeah, by all means.
Additional questions for
yes.
staff, please do.
Does this project in any way trigger a need for the Historic Commission to take a look at it?
So we definitely asked that question with the museum. What the degree to which a mural impacts the historic character of a building. This is a non-contributing, or this is a, oh shoot, it's in here. It's a compatible non-contributing structure to the district. Right. The museum absolutely is a contributing structure in the downtown district.
But the museum's artwork on the outside is removable.
Right, it is. And one of the things that a clear opposing code requirement would be if it somehow impacted a historic structure. So if you're, again, painting brick, that would be a good example. If you're putting up a massive mural and you're having to drill into masonry or whatever that might be, that would likely be impacting a historic building as well. And in that case, I would say absolutely the Historic Preservation Commission should weigh in.
But not on this case.
I would say not in this case.
Okay.
And I appreciate the fact also that one of the title names in the company, Damn Good Bread, that damn is not part of the mural.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Martin Willis?
No, I'm good.
You're good. Councilor Roden?
So when I was on the Historic Commission, we did have signage, and maybe this is different, from Jimmy Z's come forward, which is right next door, that we did not approve because of the historic nature of the downtown. So now we're just going to allow all this to happen?
So when the Historic Preservation Commission redid their code, they removed the review of signs from their code. As part of that, the idea was always that we'll come back and we'll redo the sign code. We just haven't gotten to that point.
So you have a lot of things on your plate, and that's just another thing that hasn't been done yet, because we need to change historic code that had things removed from it. Now we have historic signs that now we have no say over. It's a little bit frustrating to me.
City Manager West?
I just, thank you, Mayor. So as we know, there's a definition between operations and policy. When it comes to directing staff, that is definitely operations, and that's the city manager. So council, I'm going to ask that you stay with policy. And if you have operations or city staff issues, come to me offline. Just a reminder that is the way that this governance works.
That was policy. I'm addressing policy. Thank you for allowing me to do it. I did.
Okay, is there any other discussion we need to have? Additional questions? I don't have any more questions, so this is an action item. If someone wants to recommend action.
Can we see the packet on the screen, Karen? I'm seeing video. Thank you. I move to approve the proposed mural at 240 Monmouth Street with the conditions included in the staff report.
Second?
Motion seconds, further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Opposed.
Roden says no. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the capital improvement plan. And I have something here. Now, as mayor, I'd normally preside over the discussion and vote, and I'd be voting in a tie, if there was a tie, on the update to the capital improvement plan. In an abundance of caution, I'm going to do something a little different. One of the new projects will be considered for addition to the plan includes a stoplight at the corner of 7th Street and Monmouth Street, where my home is located. Everybody knows that. As this could be a conflict of interest, I'm recusing myself from this action, and having Council President Marilyn Morton, she's going to preside over this. So she's going to handle this. I'll step out of the room, and when this is done, I will come back in. Is everybody okay with that?
Well, I live right beside the mayor, so wouldn't I have the same conflict?
You're not on the same street. You're not on the street. I'm on the street. I'm on the corner. I thank you for asking, but am I correct?
You are correct.
Thank
The
you.
signal will affect the mayor's, but not yours. Thank you. As far as the property itself.
And before I begin this process, I also want to say that I do co-own some property downtown, and I checked with the mayor ahead of time, and he said there is no conflict of interest on that. Would you confirm that?
That is correct. The capital improvement plan adjustments do not affect that property.
In that case, we are ready for the staff report on this.
So normally this would be Gerald up here before you, and I have some literally very large shoes to fill. So I will do my best. As you all know, I watch every project. I watch it at the 40,000 foot level. He did brief me before he left on vacation. So I'm going to drop right into the very first staff report, which is an update of the capital improvement plan. You will find that staff report at page 19 of your packet. We adopted the water master plan with an updated project list, and that requires updating of the CIP to match the master plan. The water summary starts at page 61 and ends at page 66, if you want to take a look at the summary. However, if you look at page 61 of your packet, you'll see all of the water projects, and that is the summary page, that page 61. The very first thing on that summary page is listed as Project S1. Now,
We're not seeing any of that.
You're not seeing any of that?
No.
Page 61, Karen.
We received some additional information that was, because this council packet was 355 pages long.
Yeah, I don't want to kill trees.
Yes. Okay, so 61 is your summary. Those are all of the water projects that were updated when you adopted the water master plan. You can go beyond that, and each of the pages within the capital improvement plan have details of what the projects are. I was going to give you an example, but rather than making Karen's life very difficult, I will just let you peruse what those projects are. Most of them are listed as project number S, and then it goes down from there. So that's one of the things that was updated. That means we have to update this capital improvement plan. The other thing that is resulting in an improvement of the capital improvement plan is the Brandy Meadows project. The Brandy Meadows project, their traffic impact analysis indicated that we would have to do some traffic intersection improvements. We believe it will probably be a signal. Now, with that, it went through the planning commission. It came down that the city will be paying 94% of that. We did not have that on our transportation system plan, capital improvement plan. So because we now know that it's going to be a capital improvement project, we have to put it on the capital improvement project plan so that we can eventually get it built. Now that we know that it has to be built, that's the second thing that has to be included. You will find that Page 51, Karen, is the summary. And then the actual project is listed as R14, and that's on page 84 of the packet. And that's a $2.5 million project. So what we're asking tonight is that you adopt these revisions, these updates to the capital improvement plan, so that our, excuse me, our water master plan projects that you previously adopted as a part of the water master plan can be included in the capital improvement plan, and that the signal or traffic intersection improvements can also be added to the capital improvement plan now that we know that we have to do them.
And are there
There's
any
mud.
kind of state or federal funds that are available to assist on this?
We are mining every possible grant, every possible earmark, every possible thing that we can to assist.
Thank you.
Kenna, isn't the two-way left-hand turn already installed at that intersection?
I don't know.
There's a middle lane that turns left. on-
Sergeant Gilbert,
on
do you
7th
know that
Street.
intersection? Or Fred?
I know the two-way, so there is a two-way left turn going northbound.
Right.
Or it's not a two-way left turn, it's a left turn pocket going
Right.
northbound. There is not a two-way left turn lane on Monmouth Street, and it's
Oh,
quite
on
likely.
Monmouth, okay.
The two-way left turn starts right after the bridge, which is just west of that.
I'm sorry, I misread it. Yeah, you're right, okay.
Thank you, Fred. I'm glad you're here.
Now, knowing that we've already seen this in several different iterations between, in the process of approving the capital improvement master plan, does anybody have any questions for staff at this point? Hearing none, this is an action item, and I would certainly invite a motion.
Sorry, sorry, I was trying to unmute. This is Counselor Job.
Thank you, Counselor.
I was trying to figure out, so the ones that are orange are the new additions that you're changing the master plan?
The changes on the orange indicates that it is, it's part of the summary. But almost everything you see from page 61 to page, let me get back to it, 66 are the updates from the water master plan onto the capital improvement plan.
Okay, so this is, these are all things we did in the water master plan, and they're just being transferred over to show up here.
You are correct. On the water side, on the transportation side, the new project is the 7th Street project. And that is there because it went through the planning commission process, and it was determined that the city will pay 94% of that project and that the project is needed. And so we have to add that to the capital improvement plan in order to continue with that project.
Thank you.
But as you said, currently, public and governmental funds are being sought for that.
They are. There are a number of different funding sources.
Excellent, okay. It's up to you, council.
I move to adopt the 2023-2028 capital improvement plan.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt the 2023 to 2028 capital improvement plan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Are you?
I said aye. I said aye to approving.
In that case, motion passes. Thank you very much. And if we can take about a 30-second break, I'll go bring the mayor back.
Thank you, Council President.
And is this part of what you're gonna talk to the federal delegation about when you go to DC? So,
It is. Yeah.
just gonna leave stick-it notes on their walls. Don't forget independence.
We are here and we have a lot of infrastructure. Yes.
Take pins.
Most of them have been on the 1-hour tour.
Heaven help us if we did a 3-hour tour. If the weather started getting rough.
No, you You're dating yourself, Mayor.
Sorry, it was on reruns. Okay, we're now moving on to the transportation system development charges. And I have another statement I get to read now. An amended transportation SDC is under consideration for council adoption. The SDC is proposed to be amended due to the changes in the capital improvement plan as considered just a moment ago. My property will not be directly affected by the amended SDC, as I take my role seriously and know that I need to set aside any personal views I may have to remain unbiased during this process. As mayor, I would vote on the change only in the case of the tie, and I can remain unbiased during this process. With that said, I turn it over to staff to make the staff report on the transportation system development charges, and then after that, we'll have public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Once again, Gerald did the heavy lifting on this, so all of the staff reports, all of the documentation, that was all Gerald. I forgot to make that clear in the first one. So this hard work was done by him, and he may not be here, but I want to thank him for that. In the prior staff report, we talked about the update to the transportation system plan and the CIP. That is the major change to the transportation SDCs. As Gerald says, the Planning Commission notice for Brandy Meadows became effective on June 27, 2023. The development approval resulted in the need to update the city's capital improvement plan. The additional projects resulted in an impact to the system and its system development charge fees. The attached resolution modifies the system development charge fee to reflect the addition of the transportation projects in the city's 2023-2028 capital improvement plan. So the 7th Street signal, as you know, is on page 84 of the packet. Page 35, Karen, can you pull 84 for me, please? Page 84 of the packet and 35 of the CIP, whichever one's easiest for you to pull.
Oh, passing.
Thank you.
And if I
Excuse
put
me.
my glasses on, is that the right project?
Mhm.
7th Street, okay. So this is a $2.5 million project that the city had not been collecting SDCs on. We had not been collecting SDCs on it because we did not know that it was going to be a project. Now that we know it's going to be a project and we know that it's going to be 2.5 million, we need to start collecting SDCs on it. As we discussed in the prior staff report, we are not just looking at SDCs, but we have to plan that we may not get grants. We may not get earmarks. We may not get loans. We don't know what we're going to get. So our engineers, our consultants, and our public works director work together to determine what the appropriate SDCs would be with this traffic signal project in our transportation plan and our capital improvement plan. What you see before you is a resolution to increase those SDCs so that we can collect them, so that we can pay for 94% of that street signal, the street improvement. They calculated, and you'll see on page, I have 357 of page 391, that the transportation improvement SDC per trip fee in the amount of $10,994, a transportation reimbursement SDC per trip fee in the amount of $321, and an associated administrative fee of 5% is what has been recommended by our public works director, consultants, and engineers. Now, I want to step back just a little bit because I know we record these and I know our community members watch them. And I know SDCs are a complex consideration for the council and our community. So I want to go all the way back and explain for our community where we are, how we got here. You have been through this, you have seen the master plans, you know this. This is for our community to understand as well. So we start this process as a city by having a master plan prepared that indicates what we need to do for projects in each of our areas: water, sewer, streets, parks, water, sewer, streets, parks, wastewater, and we're going to have to do stormwater. We look at all of those projects and a master plan comes out of it. we open that up, we have town halls, we get community input on the master plan, on the projects, what's important. We do work sessions with the council to bring the council up to speed on what the community said, what the master plan is going to look like, what the draft looks like, allow them to ask all of the questions that they want. Then after we go through that entire process, which usually takes at least a year and sometimes longer, then we bring that master plan to the council for adoption. There's also a public hearing where our community can comment on that master plan. That's the first step. Then those projects within the master plan are added to the capital improvement plan, which you just did. You amended that capital improvement plan. Once those projects are on the capital improvement plan, which as we go through that process, we usually have community input, we usually have notice, well, we do have notice and we do have community input. And the notice goes out to anyone who's interested on that notice list, and Karen sends that out. Then once the capital improvement plan is updated, then our consultant and/or staff run all of the numbers on what it's going to cost for those changes. And if we pull projects out, that can reduce the SDCs. If we put projects in, that's going to increase the SDCs. So they do those calculations based on relevant laws and rules. SDCs are very heavily regulated, and we follow those regulations and those laws very closely. So then we will ask you to take a look at those SDC fees, increase them, decrease them, whatever we need to do in order to continue to have these projects in place, in order to continue to provide services to our community, in order to make sure that we have enough capacity for all of the new people coming in, to make sure we have enough water, to make sure our streets in good repair and are safe, to make sure that we have, when you flush your toilet, things go the right direction. All of these things are a part of why we have the SDC fees in. Now, SDC fees are, if you watch the legislature, they're talked about all the time. They're talked about with cities. There are a number of reasons for them. A couple of the reasons that resonate with a lot of people: when you bring in a new home, that new home is coming into a community that has already paid for a water treatment facility. They've already paid for a wastewater facility. They've already paid for their streets, but that new home hasn't. So they have to buy into the system because they haven't paid for it. That's one consideration. But also remember, each of those homes and businesses that come in, they're using the system. They're putting more pressure on that system. We need a new water treatment facility because we need more water going through our lines. We need bigger lines because we need to get more water to more houses and more businesses. We need a signal because there are more cars going onto the road, making it less safe. That's why we need SDCs, because without SDCs, the city cannot afford to pay for the new light or the new water treatment facility or the new wastewater facilities unless we raise the rates on our existing community members. And we're talking significant raises because our water project is a $25 million water project. So those are some of the reasons that SDCs are in place. And that's how we get there. They're heavily regulated. We have consultants who review it. They come up with the numbers, and then we move forward based upon those SDC numbers. Once the SDCs are adopted, then they are collected as the homes are built. Interestingly, and I think good for the people who are building the homes and the businesses, we have a financing option, so they don't have to pay them right up front. They can sign an agreement and pay them over time. Some cities do, some cities don't, we just do. But they're collected, they're accounted for separately from the general fund. They're kept separate. We can't use them for anything except mainly what you see in your capital improvement plan. So that's how we get to where we are with SDCs.
Are there questions for staff at this point?
I had a question.
Go ahead, Jill.
This is for the city manager. So the SDCs go into the general fund?
No.
They don't. They're only in the capital improvement fund. Is that correct?
So SDCs have separate funds for each SDC. So the water SDC is accounted for separate from the wastewater SDC, which is separate from the street, which is separate from the stormwater, which is separate from the parks. And they're all accounted for separately. So as each, let's say you're building a house and each SDC is coming in, then.
Right, okay, I think I just misunderstood what you're saying. And then, so we just raised SDCs, was that March, April? When did we do that?
Recently.
Okay, and that one was like 9,500 a house, and now we're gonna do over 10,000 a house for the transportation SDC?
Yes, the transportation SDC was raised to 10,000 because we're going to have to spend 94% of 2.5 million for a street improvement.
Right. No, I understand that. So SDCs are only on new construction, which raises the cost of all of these houses, you know, probably around double for what an SDC, you know, charge is. Just tack that on to the price of the house, and we're already extremely expensive and independent. So it is a little frustrating. I feel there's a lot of poor planning that took place on allowing all this to be built and then not having the infrastructure to support it. I feel like we're trying to play catch up, and I'm just a little frustrated with it because I feel like we don't have a choice. Like either we put it on the builders, and which carries on to the new buyers, or we put it on everybody in the city by raising their water rates, which are already extremely high. Is that kind of our options tonight?
Yeah, it wouldn't be water rates, it would be some other kind of a.
Some other tax
Yeah,
or fee,
right.
yeah.
And,
Great.
and Counselor, do remember, we don't necessarily get to choose if people develop here or not. We are in a housing crisis and we are being pushed to.
But that's where we are today, where we were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You know, that's my frustration is that 7th Street has just progressively gotten worse. I mean, I feel bad for anybody living on the corner, you know, and then to put a traffic light in, I think is going to actually make it a little worse for them. It'll make it easier to get off of 7th Street, but I don't know. I just feel like we're just playing catch up.
Additional questions, unless you had something you wanted,
No, thank you, Mayor.
additional questions? I have one.
Yes, Mayor.
I want to be really clear here. If we don't do this, if we don't raise the SDCs on transportation, specifically, because this is the SDCs to pay for the traffic light,
Correct.
what happens?
We have to try and find the funds somewhere else.
Okay, and that's,
So you weren't in when we talked, but we are desperately looking for funding from the federal level, the state level. We're looking at grants. We're looking at loans. The only, truly, the only funds that we can probably pull from would be the general fund, which is one of our poorest funds. And the general fund, as you know, we had to lay people off already. We don't have a lot of access for streets. It's a very difficult place to be. We could put in a street fee. That is another opportunity. The council would have to make that decision. A street fee would be a flat fee on every household within the city. And we would have to determine what that street fee is in order to build that. I don't know what that number is, but at $2.5 million, I think it would be significant.
bunch. Councilor Roden?
Sorry, one more question.
Yes.
Could the planning commission have argued for a better percentage rate than what they did?
So there was a lot of discussion. Fred, do you want to do a very quick summary? There was a lot of, I can do a quick summary and you feel free to fill in, okay? It was a public planning commission meeting. There was some strong discussion. We had engineers on both sides. The planning commission had to weigh the evidence, quasi-judicial, and determine which they felt had the better evidence. One set of engineers argued for 34%, Fred? It's 34% correct?
I can't even remember, that was a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Something on that order, yes.
30-something, yes.
30-something.
Yes.
And another set of engineers argued for 6%. And the planning commission, in their capacity, determined that the 6% was what they felt had the best evidence.
Have a comment?
I think Counselor Kur was there, and then back to you, Counselor. Go ahead,
And if
Counselor.
we approve this tonight and somehow a grant or something falls into Marshall's lap, what happens then?
Well, there is the potential for us to take a look and pull projects out to revise this if necessary. Let's say we get a $2 million earmark. It changes things, right? It changes things. Yeah.
Counselor Morton.
This is a more subjective comment, but I appreciate the fact that we have a trolley in town now because I think it takes some of the traffic weight off of things. But I walk downtown on a regular basis, and since school has been on again, anybody who's been in the community at about between 3 and 4 p.m. know that you don't get anywhere very fast because of the quantity of traffic. And I think it behooves us to stay out in front of this as much as possible.
So are there additional questions for the city manager at this point? Because we're going to have public comment, and then we're going to get back and we'll have discussion. So I don't want to cut anybody off, but if there are additional questions for the manager at this point. Okay. Thank you, Ms. West. We're going to have some public comment here, and let's try to keep the comments to about 3 minutes or so. Is that okay with people? I see lots of head nods because I think it'd be really clear what you'd like to say. Harvey Cummings. Good evening and welcome to City Council.
Why, thank you. Harvey Cummings, 16240 Southeast Bel Air Drive, Damascus, Oregon, 97089. Hello, Mayor, councilors, staff. I agree with the city manager that this SDC thing is very complicated. And this particular time, it's real serious, and I'll get into it pretty deeply with you here, and I'll try to keep it real brief. There's a lot of regulation around it, and there's a lot of studies out there. The House bill from legislation 3040 in 2021 mandated a study in the state on SDC charges. So they've put out a recent report. It's pretty deep, but it really gets into the intricacies of it, some of which the city manager discussed is involved. There's also a second study that's real important to educate yourself on how intense this affects communities, and that's put out by the League of Oregon Cities. And these guys discuss, in depth, housing costs, methodology on determining them, the impacts on development in the community, which is pretty critical. They go a lot into case law because there's a lot of litigation around these, so they're real critical. They talk about waivers and deferrals in there. So there's a lot more in it. And I think it's worth looking at. And I actually think it's worth really being ahead of this particular decision. Just real quick, Monmouth's charges, SDCs are like 11,900. Corvallis is 17,800. Even Gresham, the second biggest city in the state, is 22. So developers are looking at this as, wow, we're up in the 30s. We're up some of the most expensive SDCs in the state. There's higher SDCs at Wilsonville at 47. That's the highest in the state, but their housing values are so great that they can handle it because the costs get pushed through to housing, and we're trying for affordable housing. But the real impacts for for Independence is with Brandy Meadows. And I'm in a position to give you guys some information that you don't know. Staff may not realize this, but I represent the landowners, David Setniker property, Brandy Properties, and I've written all the contracts for sales. We have 2 contracts out there with 2 different developers trying to get this off the ground. Neither of those contracts have those developers bound by any reason. They're right now, they're doing due diligence. And we give a deadline on their due diligence, and then we have to extend it because they're trying to get their numbers together to see if
That's
they
3
even.
minutes, Mayor.
Finish your thought, please.
My thought it goes past this, but they can bail out. But I really need to get into the wording. So could I ask the mayor for just a little more time to address some very serious issues in the wording of Resolution 23-1589? Because it's critical, it's ambiguous,
Is there objection from council? Okay, please.
I'm going to go straight to that
Can
point.
I just ask a quick question? I'm sorry. You said you represent Setnecker. Are you an attorney or? Because I didn't understand the
I'm their
connection,
partner
sorry.
and I
Partner.
write all the contracts. I'm dealing with the
Okay.
developers on both sides. And the reason I came here today is we're about to lose these developers. We're right on the edge. And this
Okay.
decision could tip that over. And if these guys can't make these numbers work, there's no one. And this is more of a situation where it's showing a little to the developers that, yeah, the city's willing to work with you. But let me get to the point of the ambiguity and what I think is a serious flaw in this resolution if you adopt it. It's downright scary. And so let's go right to it. We're down here on page 357 of 391. And you'll read here, it says section 1, transportation, SDCs, and associated administrative fees. This is the sentence that you're adopting. And this sentence says, a transportation improvement SDC per trip fee in the amount of $10,900, a reimbursement SDC per trip fee in the amount of $329, and associated administrative fees of 5%. Per trip fee. This doesn't relate to anything. This is saying that it's replacing section 2 of resolution 22-1572, which you have already adopted. This replaces the second sentence in the prior adopted resolution. Now, the prior adopted resolution doesn't have this language. Now, maybe we know what this per trip fee is, but in that resolution, it gives a number. And then those numbers relate back to how they charge SDC fees, which is by the house. So a house, one single residential family pays X, a duplex pays a little less per unit. So where this per trip fee comes in, if you look on the internet, per trip for one household is 7 to 10 trips per day. That could put this at $70,000. It's poor. I mean, I don't understand it. I've been through the mythology on this. I've been through these. It really, you got to think hard and fast before you adopt this. Now, what I suggest is either don't adopt it, because we could lose these developers. This is real serious, and that would kill the Southwest plan out here. I mean, with the interest rates going up and where we're sitting, that's a dangerous move. And I can't tell you, that thing that happened in the Planning Commission, you know who's paying for that light? You asked the question. The developer is required to pay 100% of that light and get reimbursed the other amount back. We don't know how that's getting reimbursed back, but it's a requirement in the conditions of approval for Brandy Properties to pay for the entire light. So they're having to fund that. And I can go down the list of the things that have been added to this developer, and the numbers aren't working. And to adopt this now is like the straw for the camel's back, and it's ridiculous. I'm sorry. And what you could do is say, we're not going to adopt it tonight, but we're going to push it off, and let's get some transparency on this and give us time to react to it too, because SDCs are very touchy.
Thank you, appreciate that. I'm gonna, after we had the public comment, we would love to have some input back from you folks. Thank you. Let's see. Mr. Dalkey, Larry Dalkey. Good evening. Welcome to Independence.
Mayor and council, thanks for letting me come up here and talk. First of all, I'm not sure, for what I've heard, and I guess it's a question for the staff, I think the SDCs were raised from about 22 to up to 34,000 per lot in March.
I know we raised them. I don't remember what the exact
I think
numbers
those are the
are.
numbers, that's what I'm hearing. I'm not 100% sure. And then I'm understanding there's another 40% increase. These are numbers I'm hearing.
I
I thought it was 95.
I only know it's in front of me at the moment, but go ahead with your
Yeah.
comments.
So again, I mean, I think we're approaching over, I think somewhere I've heard 40,000 or I don't know. Kenna, do you know? On the raises, where are we at with the SDCs with the city? If we impose these increases? We went up to 34, I believe.
I don't know what all of the SDC calculations are. They're on the website.
So obviously, so I'm going to
Yeah.
go ahead with
Okay,
go
so
ahead
anyways,
with your
from what I
comments.
know, Chet Graham couldn't be here, and Mike Erdman from the Salem Home Builders couldn't be here tonight. Mike's got COVID, I guess, and Chet was on vacation, unfortunately, but he can speak highly of what's going on, but his numbers to me were 34,000, and he said they're gonna go up to about 44,000 now. You're not putting it on me, you know, I'm just here to try to continue to bring in, again, more livability, affordable houses and stuff, but these fees are, in Salem, they are about 22, and in Kaiser, they're under 20. I talked to the Public Works director there, and they're under 20. You know, so I'm not sure why the fees need to, you know, continue to go up for, you know, these things. I don't know the other alternatives to get you to pay for these, you know, capital improvements, but, you know, my solution was to focus on the Chestnut Bridge, and I've contributed money to that already. And I've continually, I'm trying to brainstorm what we can do to get there. And I know Ken is talking to Paul Evans. I've talked to Paul Evans, you know, and I know he's working towards getting some funds. And that to me seems like where the direction that we ought to really be looking at. Because again, I've created already 107 lots and homes that are now paying you guys those taxes. So those taxes are, you know, coming back into the city. And we're proposing, we have another 44 lots. I'm looking at 44 lots, but the expenses that I'm looking at with the traffic signal and some of the requirements that are being put on this project to repair, you know, and fix other issues that are out there is, you know, and I'm working with the staff the best I can, but it's just the numbers aren't making sense. And then if SDCs go up, the builders are already complaining, I won't be able to sell lots. And I just concerned about the city. And it's not about me, it's your future developers, other developers, your city. So if you continue to raise this stuff, I mean, I can see where people aren't, and I've heard it from other builders already. And I didn't know what was happening tonight until recently, but there's builders that are they're shying away from coming out here and building, and I think that's what's gonna happen. So I think it's a real serious issue you have here to be voting on something that's very critical to this city. I think if I ask each one of you guys to, you know, you come in here and you wanna buy in Independence, Oregon. I mean, I love the city just like you, I think it's a great city, but if you're telling me I've gotta pay 45, 50, you know, maybe Chet said 50,000. For SDCs, you're going to lose some growth here, and that's what you're up against right now. I'm serious about it. I'm not looking at this for myself. I'm looking at it for your future too. So that's about all I got to say. I would like to continue to build here. I think we're doing something good. I got another future 100 lots here that will get you guys another. You know, more taxes to help pay for, I don't know where all the tax dollars are going, but, you know, to help with the capital improvements. I don't know if that can be done or not, but I'm not the expert in this department. I am just a builder, and I like developing, and I love independence, so I'm gonna hopefully still be able to, and I'm not threatening leaving. I'm trying to stay. I want, but if it doesn't pencil, and that's what I'm looking at all these numbers and I'm thinking, I'm gonna do 44 more lots, but there's a lot of expenses I'm getting hit with, and I'm just trying to figure it all out, so.
Thank you for
again,
taking
thank
the
you,
time to
guys.
share with us.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Respectfully, Mayor, I have one
Let,
2-second thing that would make an impact.
let me get to Pamela first.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
I have other people.
Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Pamela Brost, and just to give you a little bit of my background, not to impress you, but just to let you know, I feel your pain, is I worked for a municipality for 35 years of my life, so I understand the budgeting process, I understand growth and development, and how you get fired at. In fact, I didn't want to, when I retired, I said I'm not going to go to another city council meeting because I ran a division on a shoestring budget, and people wanted services and demanded services, but yet they didn't want to pay for it. So I understand, and I just wanted to say that I'm totally impressed with you all just working together nicely, and there's no yelling, and City of Independence is definitely having growing pains, and you have, I lived through that during my career, and the last thing you want to do is make a decision because it seems logical at the time. There needs to be a lot of thought, and it's like what the city manager said, there's processes. So where one person, thinks about one thing, another person can contribute. And I think there's creative ways to solve funding issues, especially those unfunded things that do come up, that's necessary. And so I just want to say thank you for your time, because I know what you're all going through. I have a few gray hairs myself, and I love the City of Independence. And I live actually right smack in the middle of Brandy Meadows. And my husband and I are a divided household about the subdivision continuing. He has a cat that's a hunter, likes to go in the farm field and hunt. And we are animal lovers, and I love, seeing the green outside of my, kitchen window. But we have a responsibility, because when we bought a house in Independence, we knew there was going to be further development. And there's a big sign at the end of our 10th Street that says future development to occur. So I reminded my husband, when we bought this house, we knew that there's going to be future development. So we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility in that. And I know that my neighbors were opposed. They put their houses up for sale, moved because they were opposed to development. But I said to them, you knew when you bought the house. Well, we thought it was going to be later. Well, what's the difference between later and now? So I understand the division that takes place. We have it in our household. And I reminded my husband, I said, when I retired from my first career, I went into my second passion, which is real estate. I have my real estate license. I said, your wife is in the business to sell houses, because I have a passion to see people acquire their dreams of home ownership. And so what I want to say about the SDC is, of course, that's going to be passed off to the consumer, to the home buyer. I understand there's a money issue, a funding issue, but the SDC is going to be passed off to the homeowner. And as a realtor, I'm going to have a hard time selling homes in Independence, where it's a little bit tough already. Our neighbors in Monmouth, over the past year, they had an increase of home sales by 10%. We in Independence are -5. So why are people going to Monmouth? Well, water's cheaper, things are cheaper, maybe the SDCs are cheaper. So I want to sell Independence. I want to see Independence thrive. I want to see downtown businesses thrive. And the way to do that is to sell homes, whether people like it or not. You're always going to have people that hate development. That's just never going to go away. But in order for the
City of Independence to thrive, in order for public safety to thrive, I'm a public safety proponent, in order for the traffic issues to be resolved, we need to bring in more people to generate more revenue. But I want to say that, so that means selling houses and continuing the development. And like I said, I love my view out my backyard. However, we're in a housing crisis.
Yes.
What's more important than my view and my cat, my husband's cat, is that people have a place to live, affordable housing. And I love Independence. I have a passion for Independence. I just want to see it thrive. So
Thank you for taking the
yes,
time to come and
thank
visit
you.
with us.
All right.
Appreciate it.
30 seconds,
30 seconds, got it.
and be clear.
I'm going to, trust me. So in that state report, this balance between the size of the CIP and the STCs, what a lot of the little cities is doing is they are reducing the number of projects that are on their list, and that lowers their SDCs. That's a mechanism they use, and what they do is that encourages development. I mean, we should be talking waivers instead of increases to keep these guys here, because
Thank you. I promised that I was going to look to staff. Do you, and I don't know if you, because I know you were getting hit with some numbers there, and I know that you don't deal with these numbers every day. Yeah, and so
I don't, Mayor, but Fred and I work together, and I can respond to a few things if you would like me to.
yes.
Yes, okay.
And if you're more comfortable being right there.
Please come up, I'd like to see
Oh,
your
I'm sorry.
face.
Excuse me. I forget that you have a site.
Yeah, yes. Or get
We need
counsel-
you on a throne.
Or, no comment. So a couple of comments. We have to be careful when we compare one city's SDCs to another city's SDCs, because capital improvement plans drive the SDCs. Different cities have different needs. They have different capital improvement projects, right? I came from a city where streets were fine, water was a disaster, and they needed a lot of water capital improvement plans. Totally different from this city, where we need water and we need sewer and we need streets and we need parks, right? So you cannot, it's comparing apples and oranges. Because unless Salem has the exact same capital improvement projects as Independence, you can't compare them. Unless Monmouth has the exact same capital improvement projects as Independence, you can't compare them. Because their projects are different than our projects, their costs are different than our costs, because their projects are different than our projects. Now, we talked about notice. Karen sent a notice out over a month ago, Karen, I want to say. More than a month ago, I want to say it was 40 days ago, to everyone on the list. Plus a notice went out, as it generally does, that we were going to have this meeting. Yes, there is a signal that's required. The developers engineers did the traffic impact analysis and determined that there had to be an intersection improvement. The city did not say that. The developers engineers said that. We're just moving forward with what the traffic impact analysis said. The paying for the signal, the developer will, there were a couple of options, and it ended up that the developer pays up front, and then we reimburse with every single house that's built. So they don't have to pay SDCs, so they will be reimbursed as whole. Once the development is done, if there is any funding left for if there's anything that is left, the city will reimburse and make the developer whole for whatever the developer paid for. That's all coming from those SDCs, right? If we don't put in the SDCs, we don't have the money to pay back the developer. Chestnut Ridge, we are working on this, and I think the mayor could talk about Chestnut Ridge. He has been working on this diligently for a long, long, long time. We are so close on funding, but the Chestnut Ridge is a 2 to 3 year project. We will push it as fast as we can. We are approximately $750,000 short. We have gotten grants. We have put money aside from our ARPA funds. We have pulled all of the SDC funds that we can. Our transportation SDC fund is not wealthy, but we've pulled all that we can for, what we can do. I think it's 280,000. Representative Evans fought for us, and he got us $2 million for that project. This is a $4 and a little bit million project, and he got funding for that. Imagine if we had to fund all of that. So we're pushing Chestnut Bridge, just like Mr. Dalkey said, he's pushing Chestnut Bridge, but it's a long way off. We're working on that together. Now, we talked about numbers. So Fred and I had to take a little bit of, we had to kind of guess and assume on a couple of things. But right now, our SDCs, as they sit today, are $30,241. Water, sewer, stormwater, parks, transportation. I didn't miss any, did I, Fred? Okay. $30,241. Again, assuming a few things like the size of the water meter, blah, 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 okay? With this increase, it will be $33,554. That's a difference of $3,313. And again, because I'm a lawyer, I can't help myself. That's assuming a bunch of things, right? 3/4 meter, not a 1-inch meter, residential, we're not talking commercial. There are a lot of things that go into these SDCs. So that is a very back of napkin number. Any questions that I missed?
I have a question, please. One of the speakers referenced the language in section 1, and you heard the comments, and could you address where's the help?
Well, I wish I could address that. What I can tell you is that Gerald and our attorney created that resolution, and it went back and forth, Karen, dozens of times. I mean, they went through that thing and with a fine-tooth comb and created that. My understanding, and I'm going to say this again, here's the lawyer side of me, right? This is my understanding, but I'm not going to say that I could be wrong, but my understanding is that it's not going to be $70,000, right? It's not. The increase is going to be up to $11,315 approximately from $8,002. That is my understanding. That is the way I will direct my people to apply it.
Question.
Clarification questions for the staff?
I have a question.
Counselor Job.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. You're not positive what it says, but you want us to vote on it?
No, I know exactly what it says, but I don't know why they used per trip as opposed to per household.
Or per unit or something like that. And then the 5%, an associated administrative fee of 5%, 5% of what? 5% of the SDCs, 5% of the cost of the house, 5% of what?
That 5% was in there before. Fred, do you know on the 5%?
I'm just looking at the SDC thing on the current SDC things on our website, and it just looks like it's 5% of the SDC improvement costs. So, for example, on this it says water system SDC, the improvement is $31.49. The administrative fee, it says at 5% is $158. So 3,307. So it's an administrative fee of the SDC cost.
So with everybody looking at this and the lawyer looking at this, why would they not have written it in a way that would hold up in court? Because it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, it is, again, my assumption, considering we have one of the best law firms in the state, that it will hold up in court, that the language is appropriate. Unfortunately, Gerald isn't here and I can't delve into that. we do have the opportunity, Mayor and Council, if you do not like the per trip, we can defer this, or you can change that language. It is not something I would recommend because this has been vetted by our attorneys, and they are very good, but it is an option.
Additional questions of staff at this moment?
Observation?
Okay, so,
Or perhaps question, because I know that upon reading this earlier today, that specific language caught my eye. I would like that more clearly defined.
and so I'm going to take would anybody object and to throwing this back, because you know where some of our questions are, and bringing this back at the next appropriate council meeting, and so everybody feels a little bit better about it.
Yes, as long as we can do that when Gerald is back from vacation.
Yes, that's
because
right.
I do not want to be up here again.
Understand.
I think that's an excellent idea.
I would agree
Please.
with that, and I would also ask Gerald, if this is not too big of a lift, could we, because some of us counselors were not around at the beginning of Brandy Meadows, could we maybe get kind of here's Brandy Meadows from start to where we are now? Just so we have a sense of how this project has evolved. I mean, I'm sure there's resources we can reach out to and read, but I wasn't here when this started, and I don't know the history of it. I'm taking people's words for it. We have so many challenges. We have measures 5 and 50. We have all these measures that are impacting our ability to raise money. We've got a remarkable grant writer on our staff who has gotten grants found money out of God knows where. I don't even know where his money comes from half the time, but 2.5 million is a big ask for a grant. My question to you kind of is, how did the developers in the room get notice of this? Was it same as how we got notice when the council meeting notice was put out? Is that essentially when this happened?
Karen, can you explain the notice process that Carrie had us go through? I'm sorry, I can't without going back to your records. I'm going to try and pull from my memory, and please try and see if that triggers, or I can tell you later.
Why don't we do this all, why don't we put all the pieces together instead of doing this piece by piece? And because I have high confidence this was done the right way. I don't have any question, but let's check, let's go back. And so I didn't hear any objection because I have some thoughts, and I will just say this, and every time we've had an SDC conversation in a number of years, the developers, excuse me, gentlemen, always come in and say it's the end of the world. And it's not. And so I don't think that their comments, I recognize they have a perspective, and that's okay. And we all have our different perspectives. And so I will be very interested to see how this all comes back. And we will cogitate and come up to a solution. Everybody okay?
Great. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, folks, for being here. And you know what I'd like to do? Can we take a 5-minute break, please? Any objection? We have a 5-minute break now. We're in recess. You gotta make a restroom stop.
Well, hi, I'm ready to vote.
We're about ready to get started again here. So we're back in session again here. We have listed water meter fees. City Manager West, I think you had something to add here.
I do, Mayor. I have a request of the mayor and the council to go ahead and move the water meter fee, to allow us to move the water meter fee to the same time as we bring this SDC fee back to you. They are tied together and they need to be considered in the same evening that you consider the SDCs. So, Mayor, if we
Without
may.
objection?
You just need consensus for that.
It's just an agenda item. Okay, that's good. Announcements.
I have a question. Does us moving this forward to the next meeting change anything with the capital improvement plan that we already voted in tonight?
No, it won't change the capital improvement plan, Counselor. What it will change is the SDC fees will stay in effect until you change them. And so any plan or anything that comes in or gets to a certain point will have that gap where they'll be under the old fees and not the new fees if you do include new fees. That's the only change. Did I explain that? Did that make sense?
Made sense.
Good.
Additional announcements,
Yes.
please.
The Independence Hop and Heritage Festival is this weekend on Saturday, the 16th of September, from 12 to 8 p.m., opening with the Oregon Dancing Horses down in the amphitheater. And I don't know how the horses dance or what kind of dances they do, but I hear it's spectacular. And closing with a Ty Curtis concert. There will be music all day and demonstrations on the Heritage stage. If you ever wanted to learn how to do homebrew, that is the day to come downtown.
Great. Additional announcements? Okay, somebody say adjourn. Okay, I declare the meeting over. Thank you. Have a pleasant evening.